Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Maximo Top Tips for End Users. Thank you for tuning in from wherever you are around the world. My name is Chris Winston and I will be your host from here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Today you will see 7.6.1.2 hot off the presses as of last, probably Thursday night or Friday morning. And I'm going to use the IoT 18 skin. And yep, it's brand new. So new, I haven't had much of a chance to test it. So I guess we will find out together. This session is being recorded, and the link will go out to everyone who registered in a few days. Please remember, this session is just a primer, and it is not a replacement for formal training with an environment to test what you have learned. Additionally, there are handouts available for you to download now. If for some reason when you look at the control panel for the webinar and you find that the handouts aren't listed, they're probably just in a collapsed display. Click on the icon, that should open up and you'll see the files to be downloaded. They're yours to keep. I've actually compressed, in fact, I've removed a lot of the slides so we can get directly into the demo as soon as possible. I included a few extra slides, but I'm actually going to go over those concepts directly in Maximo in the interest of time. There'll also be another handout which contains a number of links that would be available to you for use, including some previous questions or questions that came up before this webinar. And thank you for those that submitted questions when you registered. And there'll also be some query segments which will be, I'll explain as we get to them, but they'll be directly where you can copy them and paste them as opposed to having to read them off the screen in the video. I'm not sure why I missed that before, but even in the slides, they don't have the right exact font, which the font only gets into trouble with the apostrophe for the most part. So at any rate, we will get going. This Project X company I work for, we're an IBM business partner. The main thing that we've been working with Maximo and providing it as a service over the internet since '99. That experience provides us with a number of different implementations and requests, and that's where we draw a lot of the material that we cover here. The More Maximo community, it's a new online community. It's available, and even if you don't join, you'll be able to see upcoming events like this webinar or conferences, things that are Maximo related. If you do join, you'll actually get access to some additional content that would be useful to you in your Maximo implementation. Some technical, some functional, some both, and that will continue as we get more contributions and questions from you. This is the description for this webinar. So lots of things to get covered here. I should be able to get through them all. I think I reduced all this. I think I only have one slide on this, and then we'll just get right into Maximo. There is a link here as well, which you'll have in the handout also. I'll just go to it quickly, and of course it opens in another window. Just some additional videos that are short that cover individual topics. So, and these are mostly end-user things that would be useful to you. So they're in a very short set of videos, and you can look at them. They don't require a login. Most of the things that it provides you links on do not require a login, except for the IBM training. That one will require a login, but for the most part, they're free. So if you're not registered, get in there and get IBM.com training and get registered now, because I'm not sure how long it's going to be free. All right, let's get back out of there. So what are we going to talk about today? And yes, statuses, of course. So the way, and this is just a sample flow for work orders. Um, your flow, the business flow that you use, and the statuses you use, your list may be different. Most of these are out of the box, but you can use synonyms and set up your own. The main point to keep in mind is a sort of a dividing line from a historical perspective that Maximo maintains internally, which is those above the line are considered current. Those below the line are considered historical. So canceled and closed uh, will trip the history flag, and those records would be where the history flag is yes for those that are closed and canceled, and no for everything else. In purchase orders, you get an additional historical status of revised, so that you can look at old versions of a purchase order. And then there's a few other places you'll have it as well. But mainly the thing to keep in mind is that the data doesn't go away. It's just marked as historical so that under normal conditions, by default, most of the defaults when you do a search, you look and you'll see the history flag in your search, either in your list tab or advanced search is set to no. But if you want to look at it, you can change it to yes, get the historical records, or just remove the flag entirely in your search and get everything. So that's just the main point I wanted to bring out. And then from here, yeah, let's go directly into Maximo, and I can get more of the stuff covered in there. It would help if I brought Maximo up. There it is. All right. So long list. First up, and essentially, I'm going to do this a little bit differently than normal. Instead of going into an application, cover specifics of the application, I'm going to cover functions and show them to you in different places. So we're going to bounce around a lot. Remember, it's being recorded, so sit tight. All right. First thing's navigation. So we know the normal navigations, the hamburger icon up at the top that gives us access to modules, and then the applications cascade out to the right. We also have the find navigation. We have the go-to applications, which is the side navigation, and then we have our Start Center shortcuts. So side navigation can be hidden and just pushed out of the way. You can bring it back when you want it. You have some adjustment as well as to how wide it's going to be. If I can ever grab that little handle. So there's some flexibility here. The main thing I want to bring out, though, is the find navigation item is the newer ability. And let's just try work orders. So work should do it. So this will allow you to get to an application. And more importantly, in the find navigation item, when you're in an application, you also have access to those things in the side navigation that your security rights allow. So whatever security rights allow you in terms of modules and applications, as well as access inside an application, you have access to here. So if you don't remember where completing a work order is, you can type in something of it, and as you type, you'll see that it will filter based on what you type, including inside a word. So, oops, CO, and you'll see here we got chart of accounts because CO is there, currency codes, CO is there, and I've got access to it. But we want to look at complete work order. That guy's down here. Click on it. You have access to that action. Now, if it's not applicable when you click on it, then you'll get an error message just like you would if you navigate to it normally. In this case, I can complete work orders from the list tab, but I'm not displaying any. Whereas if I was actually displaying work orders and I went to complete, then I would get a message indicating how many of them there are, and it could be processed from there. So find navigation, I think you'll find it's a little obscure. It's not something you're probably used to, but you will find it will be very helpful. And speaking of helpful, let's talk about help. So we have our usual traditional help. We have the Knowledge Center, which is huge. It's all sorts of help. Does not have the same restrictions and security as Maximo does, which means from the Help Center, you actually have access to help for applications you may not actually have access to. Um, that can make navigation more difficult inside help. So we recommend if you want help in an application, go to the application first, and then the second choice is always going to be help for that application. This will get you very far into help, into what you're specifically looking for. In this case, it opens for work order tracking help. But what I want to show you also is the other help, which is search tips. So search tips is help as well. And generally these things are all regulated by security, but I'm sure you have access to them. It's just really a matter of knowing where they are. The search tips are available to you throughout all the end user applications. So I'm in work orders now. I could go to inventory. If I put it in the right field, INVEN, there we go. And it's going to be, actually, it'll even be up here. So view search tips. You can get it on either icon, either the one up here on the toolbar or the one here on the advanced search. And the issue is sometimes, depending on your settings, you may not actually have this bar displayed, but this one will always be here up at the top for your overall application toolbar, and you'll see view search tips. And it brings you into a new tab, and usually in this case a new window, and takes you to the IBM support knowledge base. So you can actually bookmark this in your browser, and when you need access to it, it would be available to you directly even when Maximo's down. We have searching examples, where clause, we want to make modifications to it, the wildcards, and of course there are actually quite a few of them that are available in your search, navigation, and searching and hierarchies. So quite a few things that are available to you in help, and as you can see here, there's quite a bit. And if you open up the modules and applications, and we look up administration alone, and you'll see they just continue to expand, and there's just more and more help and more levels of help, and it's really very long. So please, when you need help, do it from the application you want and select that second selection, or view search tips from any application where you need to see them. All right, let's talk a little bit about defaults. So let's go back. Well, I guess I could have done it there, but we'll go back here to the Start Center. So first thing we want to talk about is a profile. So right up here in the upper right corner, we have the profile. There's a few things here. We're just going to go over a couple of them. First, default information. So the first thing to keep in mind is that default insert site. For people who create records, this is actually critical. In fact, I'll just do this the easy way. I'll get rid of my default insert site, and let's just go create a work order. Can't be done because I need a default insert site so it knows where. Now, even in a case where you have a single org and a single site in your implementation, you still need to have the default insert site set up and configured in your profile. And especially in that case, it's a one-time thing. It's probably been done for you, but if you do get this error, this is how you get out of it. Now, there are some records that are not at the site level. So if I want to, for example, go create a person record, I can do it. Because the person record doesn't live at the org or the site level, it's a system level. So even without a default insert site, I can create a person record. But and this is typically not something you're going to be too involved in unless you're an administrator, but for work orders, purchase orders, inventory, PMs, assets, locations, things like that, you'll need to have that default insert site, or you're going to get the error message. All right, so let's go ahead, get back. Don't need to save any changes. And before I forget, let's get back to that default and set it. Bedford. Now, the checkbox to have it set as a display filter is useful. That just means when you walk into an application and the site field is there, it'll fill it in. And if you don't, it won't. I'd recommend you leave it checked. That should help you when you're querying. If you have multi-site capability, then that would be, if you actually need to work in multiple sites during the day, and maybe something you won't check off. But if it's something you default, you use it on a regular basis, you probably want to keep it checked. Side navigation, uh, just don't hide. If you hide it, it's hard to get it back. You got to come back here and make changes. And ideally, you will set your profile once. And the only time you'll ever come back to the profile is really, if you have an e-sig or if you want to change the default insert site because you're working in multiple sites. But for most people, they'll work typically in one site, and then they would just set this up once and probably never have to come back to it throughout their implementation. So just don't hide the side navigation. Whether you use it from the security group or you just force it to display, it's kind of up to you. Just don't use the hide button. I have not really found a use for it yet, but I'm sure there probably is one. In fact, if you have one, why don't you put it into the question or into the chat? Either way, I get them all. I'll look at them. Let's see. Next thing we want to talk about default. So default applications. Couple things here. So you can actually, if the start center is where you go normally, that's fine. But if you go directly into an application, you can specify that here. So let's say I go into, I don't know, PR, and that's where I live most of my day, or at least where I begin my day. So I can actually set that up as a default application. And when I log out, log back in, oh, nope, I'm not him right now. I think that's right. Yeah, I'm him. So I go directly to the purchase requisition application. And I can even take it a step further. I have queries available, and I want to set one of those, in this case, purchase requisitions awaiting approval. Check the box, hit OK, sign out. Oh, you really want me to be administrator today, don't you? All right, sign back in, go into the purchase requisition application, and run the default query. Yeah, if you have a need to do that, you have the ability, assuming security rights, you have the ability out of the box to set that up for yourself and to unset it. So I will remove the checkbox on the default query, and I will remove the default application. And now I'm all set. So next time in, I'll come back to Start Center. One other piece on this profile is personal information. For the most part, phone and email. Well, can't believe I forgot that. So your phone, your email is what you want to have in the profile. Reason for that, we'll just show you. When you create work order, somewhere at the bottom, phone number's there, and because you're referencing the reported by, if there's a communication needs to go out, that's something that somebody can actually send to you, now they know who's here. The email is not displayed by default, but your administrator could make that happen as well. It would just need to be a change made in Maximo. All right, so, and yes, I actually have actually have a list on paper to make sure I cover everything. So we've talked about navigation and help, and we're going through defaults for default queries and profile. Now we're going to get to field assistance. So let's actually take, I'm just going to grab a work order here. Use the find work order so I can go right to it. Because above the find navigation is find and then a record key for whatever application you're in. In this case, work order takes me directly to it. Over here, we're going to look at a few of the field assistants that are available to you within the application. I'm going to get some of this real estate out of the way. Now, mind you, when I come back, yeah, the stuff's still going to be open. You can't really compress these and expect them to stay compressed or minimized. Your administrator can minimize or hide or remove things in the application for all users, but the piece that I'm doing now is not something that gets saved. So just so you know that. That was a question that came up before, so I figured I'd answer it now. All right, so we're going to look at materials. Sure you know about, well, hover dialogues are available for items, assets, and I believe people, and show some general information. The hover dialogues can be modified. That's in the tool set that's delivered with Maximo, is the ability to modify the screens, the database configuration, field size, extra fields, and among other things, hover dialogues. So what we're going to look at here is view item availability. There's a view image too. If you have a picture, you can see it wherever you see the item number. But we're going to look at view item availability because what I want to bring out, you probably know this already, I won't go over all of it, but you have this function here to bring information to you. The first couple tabs are bringing you inventory information. The purchasing tab brings you information from both purchasing applications and then from contracts. Alternate items are off the item master and reservations if that particular part is reserved. So you have that. That's been available for a long time. There's a few other tweaks that have been added to it, particularly the purchasing has probably had the most modifications over time, but that's something that is available. You similarly for assets, the hover dialog, of course. And in this case, you have a number of view. You can look at asset details, which includes the specifications and what those settings may be. You can examine work details, just talks about work related to that asset. In this case, work orders, preventive maintenance that may be there, if it's on a route, collections and inspections as well. And since you were on the asset, then it just filled in the field for you directly and then queried the database and brought the information to you from the other places in Maximo. So you don't have to go out to those other places to find that information. The other thing that's here is contracts. So if this particular asset is covered under a warranty contract, you'll see it. You'll actually, if you have rights to it, you actually be able to go to it as well. And the thing that this drives is when I create a work order for 1145, oops, 0. I tab off the field, and there's my little message. Asset 11450 is under warranty. So because I have a warranty contract and I'm inside the date range of coverage and the contract is approved, then I would get the message indicating it's under warranty. And then whatever your business rules call for you to do, you can go from there with the information that it is under warranty. All right, so let's get out of here. And we will continue on to field assistance in purchasing. So let's go to purchase. Let's do ORDER and find it that way. Nope, don't need to save any changes. All right. So for purchase orders, we actually have on purchase orders a little bit different. 105, I think is right. Yeah. So on purchase orders, we have, I guess I would call them sort of ease of use buttons. They are doing the same thing as like view item availability brought a lot of information to you from other places, same as the field assistance for assets. Locations worked very much the same as assets. In this particular case, we're in purchasing. So we have access to the first two vendor items and contract items are based on the vendor themselves. So we look, the vendor itself on this particular order is GCE. So if we go to PO lines and we look at vendor items, then we see other items at this particular vendor is referenced on an inventory on the INV vendor record for those who live at that level of detail, essentially on the reorder um, tab in the lower portion of the in the inventory application. So rather than you having to go to inventory and look it up, if it's useful information, you can find it right here. You can actually make selections as well. Oh, this guy's awaiting approval. And if you need to, especially if you're a buyer and you need to put a few more things on there to get a deal, you can go ahead and do that and fill out the lines. If you have items from that vendor that are under contract that you want, and you want to get that particularly price, because it's typically going to be a pricing contract that these will be on and identified. You have the contract number here, the individual item, and so on. And again, this is all information for that vendor. As we move across, we get select spare parts. This is a little bit different. Select spare parts is looking essentially at the asset application and the spare parts subtab, and it's going to display everything that's listed as a spare part. What you want to do is put in your asset, and you also have a capability to search for it. If you know what the asset number is, you can put it in, hit refine. If you need to specify the site, you can. In this case, it's the only one. But from here, you can, and again, you'll see the checkbox, so you actually can select additional items. And it's just going to be a really big PO. So again, giving you the ability to go out and get the information without you having to leave purchasing. Vendor analysis. Now, vendor analysis view contracts. Now we're getting actually vendor analysis view contracts and distributed costs. Now we're getting into details that are reflected in the line that you choose. So I'm choosing this line for part 11241. I'd look at vendor analysis. Essentially now this is again looking at the details in the inventory application on the reorder tab. And if I pick a different row, I can look at vendor analysis there and I get different information. So you will be able to do that. Same with viewing contracts. Now I'm looking at this particular item, and if it's on a contract, which is we looked at earlier, it is. If I look at the other item, view contracts, just cases on the same contract. Again, it's a pricing contract, but it could be on a different contract, because you can have multiple pricing contracts with the same vendor, just covering different parts, which is usually negotiation if that can't be covered on one contract. Distributing costs. Well, this is a fun one. So distributing costs, well, actually, just do it now. I'm referencing this line, and I will get an error. Cost distribution can be done, but it can only be done on a direct issue line. If it's not a direct issue, it's not going to work. In this particular case, we have hours here for direct and distributed cost. In this case, it's 100%. But if you needed to split it out, actually, I guess I could just split it out. 75 and 25 and just pick a different GL. We'll use management and supplies, general. And whatever the distribution is that you need to have, that's something that's going to be available to you. You've not added a conversion factor, which means that there is something incomplete on, oh, there's something incomplete on this line. And that's what I get for, nope, there's not. There's something incomplete on another line. So let me get rid of, that's what I do with too many lines. All right, let's see. Dispose of those guys. All right, that's related information, and we'll come back here and we look at distributed costs. Let's try that again. So 75, 25, and a new GL. And okay, there we go. And then on the shells distributed. And again, it's really just to make, oops, gotta click on the line, make it so that the charges for that can go to different GLs, depending on what your business requirements are. All right, so that's taking care of those. Now we should take a look at querying. Yeah, let's just do it here. We'll just stay in purchasing for that. And we'll go back. A couple things first. This history flag. This field is not normally here. In general, what you'll find out of the box, the first field is going to be the PO number. The history flags here, just I had somebody that needed it to, so just put it here for show. It's just an easier way in their case to be able to change, because they did a lot of searches in history because they had more than a decade in Maximo. So there's plenty of data there. It just made it easier for them. But it's the same field as what's here. So if I make this guy, yes, and hit find, I'll see the records, and that will be reflected here as well. So main point, advanced search has additional fields for you to search on. You may want to bring some, but not a lot. You may want to bring some of those onto the list tab for convenience if you have to leverage those fields on a regular basis. My opinion, they should be only brought onto the list tab for search purposes, not for download purposes. If you want additional fields here because you download a lot, use a query-based report. And actually, I'm running out of time, but I'll show you that too somehow. All right. Only other thing I really wanted to bring up here in the search itself, let's first restore application defaults. You have the ability to search. You can search at line level. So if you know that the word seal, hopefully I have one of these, is in the description on a line, based on the other criteria, you can find it. We'll go to PO line, somewhere here, errors mechanical seal. Okay, so you're not limited to just what's on the first tab. The advanced search gives you access to quite a bit more, and the advanced search can be modified to get you access to additional fields that you may need for search purposes. All right, we'll restore the application defaults again. Let's see, where am I? I'm a buyer, so I think I bought some stuff here. So I'll look for me, there I am. Now, I have a query now where I found things that I'm the buyer. So I'm going to go ahead and save it. I'm just going to call it, say I am buyer. Okay, difference, the first field, that's what's stored in Maximo. The second field is what you see in the display in the list of queries. So I'll make it, make it public. What the heck? All right, so when I look at the syntax, there's the where clause, but I want to make it generic so that other people can use it, which would typically be something an administrator would do. So this is the file that you download or you have downloaded already, and it contains some query segments of which we're going to snag one. Let's see, this one. So I'm just going to copy it as is, get out of there, and I'm going to paste it. So I need to replace this like thing with, and I'll just put in a couple enters here just so you see that's it. So it's looking at purchase agent, and it just rationalizes based on the current user. Now you see I save it here as :user, right? And I'm going to just copy that whole thing to the clipboard. Still finds, but what it does is it converts it to me. What you want to do when you save a query in the view manage query, you want to make sure that saves as the user. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. And the first time, generally it doesn't. You do it live, so I just copied and pasted it back. So it should actually stay, yep, stays user. So this way, when I run it, even though it says :user, when it runs, it actually translates it to me. And then in this relationship just looks at the user, the person ID, and essentially follows the relationships back in cases where your person ID, your user ID are not the same. This syntax will resolve that, and that way you don't have to worry about it. All right, so we saved it. We can actually put this guy on the Start Center. So I'm going to add a new result set. All right, yep, because it looks like I need to add a new one. So we will just select content, add a result set. And again, all this is because I have rights, security rights that give me access. Let's make it number 0. Hopefully that'll get it on the top. Ah, it did. We will hit the pencil. That takes us into the place where we can pick the things that we need. First thing, of course, we need the application is purchase orders. We need a query. I am the buyer. We can actually use this, put it up here. It's just easier, and decide what we want to have. I'll just do PO num description, date, cost. I'm just filtering the list to get a few fields. Description, PO number, status date, and cost. I'll just put those on there. Add selected. And then there's some other videos as well if you want to get into the chart options and color and things like that. But it's pretty straightforward. So you can build a query. You can bring it on to the Start Center by creating a result set. And again, it's all about having access. You can change the order of these because you would think the PO number would be the first thing. So I just change 1 and 2. And there, PO numbers first. Click on it, takes you in to the purchase order. Now, somebody else gets, if this was a administrator modifying the Start Center, that result set would be modified on a template, and the users would be granted access to it. But the key is that it would come in and look at their login and find the purchase orders they are the buyer on. All right, a couple other things. So communications. While I'm here, if you want to send a communication, you have the ability to just build an email. Optionally, you can leverage a communication template if one's been set up for you, where you don't have to type in as much information. Communications templates And this is more of an administrative thing, which I know you don't care about, so I won't spend a whole lot of time on it, especially since I'm running out. Appeal notification. So you have a number of things that you can get on there. You can preload, in which case when you actually use, then you get a lot of this information filled in. Email to from, details, you can bring color into it. If you want to make attachments, you can attach files or attach a web page. And then when the email goes out, and this particular case, it will actually go, it will go to me. Oh, because I'm pretty sure, yeah. So it's going to go to me somewhere. Well, I don't have email open, so I'll do that, and we'll see it in a moment. But you'll also see that on the log, communications log, it's there. So nobody has to find me and say, do you remember the email you sent whenever? It's going to be there and be available to you or available to somebody else for reference. And then the email itself looks like what you saw in the communications template. So, you can have your administrator set the templates how you need them. You can set up more than one for an application and use them as you need to. All right, so yeah, we're running out of time. Let's do one more thing here before I get to actually have some questions here. So let's go work order tracking and let's run a report. Run reports, there it is. And let's see, do I have it? Of course not, because I didn't grant myself access to it. So now I need to be max admin. Let's see, work order tracking, run reports. Yep, there it is. Overdue PM, group by site, work order priority. So this is a query-based report. I'm just going to go ahead and let it run. The main thing I want to talk about is query-based reporting. You've probably gotten some familiarity with. If not, there's a list of videos that will help you out with that. This particular one was really to address a case where a calculation was needed that was not in the library. And I contacted one of our developers, got him to build it, and put it in the library to make it available to do this calculation. Current days past the target completion. It needed to do a date differential calculation or a difference calculation. It was not one of the calculations that was available. So you find your administrator or the developer, if your administrator is not aware of how that's done, and then you may need to look up a reference. But ultimately, that is the piece that you need to get the calculation working. Other than that, it's really just fields in Maximo. And if we look at it, and we go back to calculate, nope, not count. Yes, calculate. There it is. And we modify. There we go. And it's this date difference calculation. That is the function expression that needed to be added into Maximo to make that available so that it would do the calculation for me and then I could actually display it on the report. Once it's there, people have access to it. It's just one of the other functions that is available in the library. And then from there, they can utilize it for other calculations. Let's see. Let me get out of here and out of here. And a few things, I guess, to keep in mind as well. Security. You'll find security will alter the actions you have as well as the applications you have access to. Generally, it's there to help you and get those things out of your way that you do not need to see. And the last thing I want to do before I get to questions, yeah, we'll just do Let's see, what's the easiest way to do this? I guess I could first just show you where is my related work order field. All right, so um, Maximo develops these relationships inside Maximo so that you'll be able to see them and leverage them whenever you are using Maximo. Up, related records tab is where I want to be. So in this case, you have a related work order. Here in the case that you have a follow-up work order. And the main thing is that the way these are created, actually, let me just grab a different work order. I'll create one. It's 1,000. Nah, it's in waiting approval status. Let me get somebody else. Let's find somebody who's it. Oops. Actually, let's just restore and just find. And we'll grab one down here. Waiting schedule. Generate overhaul. Lovely. This action that says create work order. So there are no related work orders here. This action actually is what creates the follow-up work order. So this is the work order that's just been created, which is 1212. We were on 1020. If we look at 1020, then we'll see 1212, which is the work order we just created, is the follow-up work order. It says create work order. This can actually be changed to say follow-up work order if you want to have that. That's functionality within Maximo. You can make that change. But this is the best way to create a follow-up work order, which then leverages a relationship, particularly for PMs. If you have PMs and you look at the PM and you go, wait a minute, we're doing this PM every month and we don't have a lot of extra work to do. It does it within a certain amount of time and there's no follow-ups. Sometimes we see people duplicate a work order or create a new work order with a -A or -1 and so on. It's fine, but it's harder to capture and hard to track that way. Whereas if you just leverage the relationships already in place, Maximo will do the work for you. And let me go grab some questions here. Actually, it looks like status is the first question. So the question is, what happens if you approve a work order that started in waiting scheduled status? That's perfectly okay. It's still above the line, so it is not a historical record. Generally, work orders start in waiting approval, or if it's quick reporting, it starts in progress. Waiting schedule is probably PM, but technically you can modify the new status. So it's still fine. It doesn't go into history automatically, so you should be fine there. Let's get out of here. Next questions. We've been using an older skin and hide site navigation so that less retraining is needed for upgrades until we choose to move to the new skin. I'm assuming, Wade, then you're single org, single site. So that, or did you mean side navigation? I'm not sure if you can clarify that. I guess I'm not sure if you say you hide the side navigation, which is this piece on the side. Okay, thank you. So it's side navigation. You hide this. I mean, I guess if that's what you want to do, that's fine. It's just generally easier. You do have the ability through system properties to move your actions onto the toolbar to diminish kind of the need to have the side navigation. You can also put your queries up here on the toolbar as well and make that, and then you don't need this section. So I suppose you can go ahead and navigate with it or without it, but generally it's just not something to recommend. Let's see, another question, Dave. Do result set queries displayed on the Start Center if used by many users slow performance? So I suppose if a lot of people did the same thing at the same time, that might be an issue. Generally speaking, I often recommend like maybe 2 result sets on the Start Center. And
find somebody that understands the structured query language in the database to build them efficiently. That way, because when you first start out with Maximo, it really isn't much of an issue. But as you get years of history available and you're going through those types of records, then it becomes more and more significant. And if you have more and more users as well. I guess suppose theoretically, if a lot of people did, everybody logs in at the same time and they all have 10 result sets on their Start Center, then yeah, I suppose it would. I don't think I've ever really examined that. I'll make an inquiry, and if we find something, maybe I'll just post it in more Maximo, and you'll be able to see it there. It's a performance thing, just not something I'm all that familiar with. When there's a performance issue, I call for help. All right, so here's one question that was sent in with the registration. Okay. So if you have a number, basically if they have a number of work orders, and I guess somebody took early retirement or just left for whatever reason, and they were assigned as the owner on a number of work orders. So just as an example, I think Sam has quite a few. Yeah. So the nice part about this is ownership can't be managed from the list tab. So it tells me I'll affect 10 records. I'll hit OK, and I want to give it to Roland Smith, mainly because he too is an electrician. And then they're all done. They all disappear because the where clause is looking for Sam. If I change that to Smith, they all come back, and I can take a look at one of them and then go down to, where is it? The owner field, and there he is. And let's see, where is my view history? And I even see the fact that it was changed, and it was changed by me. So you do have that capability. Let's see, another question. Get all the time. So what happens when the work order has an asset number that's incorrect, and it's an approved status or some other status other than waiting approval, and you don't have rights to change it back to waiting approval, which does happen. Yeah, and as a consequence, as you can see here, I cannot change this. This is an organization setting. So I know this is in user presentation, but just so you know, it's not hard to do. It's usually harder to get approved than it is to implement. Work order, edit rules. So I'll just say approve. I can change GL asset location. And that's saved. Let's see, I think this is live. So let's find somebody that's approved. Whoops, not over there, over there. And we'll just grab one, and now I can change it. It's demo data, so the fact that it's wrong, it's not all that bad. There it goes. So go ahead, I make the change, gives me the soft error message, not at the current location. I'll say yes, and I'll get a GL, yep, and I'm also going to be affecting the GL when I do this, which is why a lot of people don't grant the access. But you have the controls within the confines of the application to allow that to take place. It's just something you need to work through with your administrator because it does affect all users. Let's see, don't seem to have any other questions coming in over the questions. Let's see, we have, oh, I talked about that one. It goes a question about if you minimize these guys and you come back in, will that be saved? The answer is no. That is something that your administrator can work on, but otherwise you can't get much of that other than just coming back and minimizing it. Ultimately, it's all part of making Maximo simpler and easier to use, is to make sure that for most users, the primary things that need to be there are there, and others can actually be suppressed and hidden. Got another question here. Workflow. I suppose I should always know I'll have these. So this was a question that was emailed in. I'm not going to say the changes. All right. So the concern is when I have multiple records in workflow, they don't like the fact that they have to come back to the Start Center, come back to the inbox, and then click on the record again. Now, technically, you can have your administrator write a query to follow your assignments in workflow, depending on how they're built. It can be complicated. I'll actually show you one. I'm not going to go here. I mean, if I do this, it'll just take me to, in this case, purchase requisitions and take me to that record. So rather than do this, I'm actually going to go into the purchase requisition application. I'll run my workflow assignment query. I get the same records. And I say it's complicated because it is. It's kind of messy. Actually, let's look at the saved version. Because all the stuff that needs to be done, the thing to keep in mind is right here, you got to make sure that it's looking at the user and then following the rules of assignment. In this case, these are directly assigned. If it's assigned to a role or group, the rules are different. The query syntax is different. That's why I say you want to talk to your administrator, but it is something that is possible. The caution I would mention is that in a case where you have the last memo exposed so that the recipient of the workflow, the next person, or in your case, you, if that's what you're seeing, is available to you on the Start Center. When you move to the record in purchase requisitions, you actually have to go to history, I believe, to actually see the memo. So if you're not using it, then it won't matter, but a lot of people do, particularly when there's something that weird goes on in the workflow and you need to pass that information on. So if you do build a query to follow your workflow assignment, you'll want to make sure that your users look at the workflow history to take a look at that memo to see if there's something that's in there for them. You also have the ability to leverage communications and the communication template to actually send them an email. So whatever works for you, it's just one of those things where there's so many ways to do the same thing in Maximo, and I don't think that's ever going to change. And we are about out of time, so, and don't have any more questions in the Q&A. So keep in mind, more Maximo, moremaximo.com for your questions, and I will get this guy saved up. We will get the link sent out probably in a few days, and you'll be able to see the replay on this. Again, you have the handouts. I'll get them posted into the More Maximo community as well if for some reason you did not get a chance to download the actual handout or handouts. There's two of them. There's the slide deck, which only has a few slides, and then there is this. I can bring it over to the correct window. There it is, which has a number of links, mostly videos. There's one to the Train Your Way community, which has a number of free resources there as well. The More Maximo community, YouTube channel, IBM training. You need to register for those. Most of them right now are free. So I would say it's something you want to, if you haven't done it yet, just go ahead and do it. Do it right now. Just you go to ibm.com/training. It'll resolve and get you here, and just sign up for them and have them available. There are simulations in there, so you'll get the lesson. You'll actually be able to test something out to make sure it behaves correctly or as you expect. So it's all very useful information. That's what we're trying to provide. And assist you in your journey in Maximo. Last thing, of course, I mentioned and saw earlier, just some query segments. The reason for the fixed pitch font, the Courier New, is that that apostrophe or the single quote, when you put it in Word, it tends to get changed. Then you try and paste it into the query box, and it doesn't work. So to avoid explaining that ever again, whenever I do this, I'll just need to remember to just put it in Courier New or some font like that it doesn't get changed in, and yep, did it in Notepad. So I guess that's about it. And looks like it is. Some more. Oh, let's see. Looks like I might have gotten another question. What happens if you approve a work order that started with waiting schedule status? It just goes to approved status. Waiting schedule's effectively approved anyway. I guess I got that question again, so I guess I just didn't clarify. But it's fine. You'll just have history. You know, in the case where sometimes a PM record will get created as a waiting schedule status. Someone goes in and actually approves it in Maximo, and you'll actually see in work order history the first status waiting schedule and then the next one approved. It's perfectly fine if it lines up with how your business process works and how you want to keep track of things in Maximo. And that's it. So thanks very much. Look for the link in a couple of days, and let's be careful out there. Thank you.